So I'm Joseph Kunkel, and we're in the office of Mass Design Group, where we lead the Sustainable Native Communities Design Lab. We're located on the lands of the Oge-Poge, which is a Tewa name for White Shell Water Place, also known as Santa Fe, New Mexico. So we're working with tribal communities around the country. We're focused on lifting up Indigenous voices, bringing design thinking, design processes to communities that haven't historically had access to design. Whenever we engage with a new partner, a new tribal community, a community that we've never worked with before, it really does start with trying to set the tone that we are outsiders. I might be Native, I'm Northern Cheyenne, but I'm typically not Indigenous to the communities that we're historically working in. And so understanding those cultural nuances, I think, is really important as designers. Hopefully the processes and the research that we're moving to will create an architecture that really reflects a community's particular connection to place. And that connection to place is also the connection to land, is connection to culture, is a connection to how we think about community. The bigger goal here is to not copy-paste solutions throughout Indian country. That has been done before. So Akwesasne, located along the St. Regis River in upstate New York, is a project that is focused on bringing affordable housing homeownership to the Akwesasne community. It's designed to be an eco-village, and so lifting up the kind of sustainability means and methods and thinking that the tribe has historically thought about. And so reckoning back to the longhouse and how individuals and families and community members would live collectively in a longhouse. Now, Akwesasne is not going to go back and live in a longhouse communally, but the forms can kind of be informed by the longhouse. And this is where I think Western thought and Indigenous knowledge come together, right? How can we use Western ways of thinking about housing, meld that together with an Akwesasne way of thinking about housing, and develop condos, apartments in this kind of longhouse form, and then kind of put these longhouse forms together to create shared spaces and ways of generating community. This notion around affordable housing or building affordability in housing is incredibly important. How are we owning the homes and being in control of the homes and the architecture and the built environment that we build, rather than it being given to us by the federal government? This is another kind of historic issue that we see all over Indian country, right? The Army Corps of Engineers has come in and dammed rivers and have flooded villages. Akwesasne has undammed one of their rivers to allow for cultural activities to happen within the community. When we talk about sovereignty and we talk about self-determination, like that's a way of flexing that sovereignty. That's a way of flexing that self-determination. In this instance, trying to bring Indigenous knowledge into this space has been something that has helped guide the project. The architecture should be responding to its place. It should be responding to the land. Should the St. Regis flood, how do we let it flood? And how do we design homes, housing, buildings that can respond to that? And I think the idea and concept here is to not engineer our way out of this. Willamette Falls is a complex project. We frame it as the Willamette Falls Tribal Engagement Project. What we've been tasked with was to ensure and engage the tribes that have historically claimed a connection to the falls. And so many of the communities that we've been working with, their histories, their creation stories come from this place. They've been part of the falls since time immemorial. Yet historically, or when we think about the narrative that has surrounded Willamette Falls in this kind of near past, is really much more about the kind of Western conquest. Our goal was to kind of engage with each individual tribal community along with the urban Indigenous communities, right, to ensure that their voices are part of the redevelopment of the river. The project is not about the development of the site, it's more about how is the Riverwalk lifting up the voices of the surrounding tribal communities. And the hope for our work is to kind of solidify in a series of design recommendations that would then inform the design of the Riverwalk. And these design recommendations would come from the tribe. It's not up to us to do that. Every tribe has their own history as it relates to the falls. And so how do we ensure that their voices are being heard? Whatever has been built historically has not been for us, not been by us. If we are truly acknowledging the land, then we should be creating spaces, places, conversations for empowering individuals and empowering communities rather than just kind of tokenizing them. How are we integrating that kind of Indigenous knowledge in the academy? How are we educating the next generation of natives to kind of work in this space? How are we training non-natives to be working in an Indigenous space? People are at the table wanting to have these conversations. That, I think, is productive, and we need to move that conversation from this notion of mistrust to a place of trust and relationship building. And then when we think about healing, when we think about the practice, it's going to take both sides, natives and non-natives, to be working in the space to lift up the issues, the social justice issues, the community issues that we see all over Indian country, if we're going to have some sense of impact.